Hi, my name is Serena, also known as iicckyo on my art pages. I've decided that I want to participate in the YouTube trend Draw My Life, as I thought it would be cool to tell the story of what makes me me and incorporate art into it, which is something I love. I'm not going to do my full art style in this video, and I'm going to do it with a much more simplified, comic strip-like version because I don't want to get overwhelmed by the amount of things I'm going to be drawing for this narration. Additionally, I've been very hesitant to make this video as my life has consisted of an abundance of problematic events, but I feel like by telling my story in all its glory, or lack of, I may just help somebody out in seeing that they are not alone in this world and that they can get through it. I guess now I will finally start off by saying that this video will contain sensitive content, so if you're not prepared for viewing such matters, this is your cautionary heads up as I do briefly mention some heavy topics. Here goes everything. I was born in the summer of 2000 to my white German mother and my black American father. They met while my dad was in the military in Germany, and they had my sisters, twins, 20 years before I was born. My parents weren't together very long through my own childhood, as my dad eventually left my mom when I was 9. Whenever I'd heard about other kids having split up parents, I got an impression that I was meant to be sad, but truth be told, I didn't feel a thing. I was so used to my dad being away so often with his work trips that after a long while, I had to stop missing him all the time. In other words, my heart had to find a way to protect itself, so I subconsciously blocked out those feelings and had little to no reaction to his departure from my home. And that was the beginning of a long-lived pattern of coping by dissociation that ended up manifesting in many different, unintentional and intentional ways as time went on. As a kid, I really enjoyed doing anything that I could do or experience in a repetitive manner. I'd watch the same episodes of SpongeBob over and over again so many times that I'd memorize every line word for word so well that when I'd visit Germany with my mom, I could quote each bit down to a T in English without even knowing German. Also, forgive me for the quality of this drawing, for I cannot draw SpongeBob to save my life. Anyway, my childhood had some good highlights. I grew up on a street that had tons of other kids living there, so I actually had lots of friends outside of school. One of them I've been consistent friends with to this day since we were 5 years old. We would all play outside with walkie-talkies, various Nerf toys, and all of our imaginations. In my early childhood, I really loved spending time with my friends a lot. There was a certain point where that changed though. After a certain point, not only did I stop going out to play with my friends a lot, but my grades also dropped, and I also started having meltdowns and essentially completely changed as a person. I wouldn't have known it back then, but one of the reasons all those things changed was because of a very specific person in my life. He was a neighbor child like the others, a few years older than me though. This boy was nice enough to begin with, seemingly. He was in the gifted program at school, and he told us he had a high IQ since he was tested for the program. Having a high IQ must be great, but truthfully, alleged intelligence in the mind of the wrong people can be extraordinarily problematic and dangerous. This boy, we'll call him Ernie, was one of those with a mind that was either born to be or fostered to be evil from the beginning. He was like a character with superpowers using them for bad. A supervillain, if you will. The reason all of that information about Ernie is important is because this is the person who sexually abused me for about 4 or 5 years, beginning when I was 9 years old. It started as truth or dare, and he told me I have to do dares. He locked the door and showed me things, videos, himself, and did things to me, all while going back and forth between being mean and being nice to me to get what he wanted. All I wanted was for him to be nice to me and to be my friend, because when he was mean, he was horrible to me. This all went on as my dad was gone, who I came to interact with less and less and less over the years. My mom became an increasingly angry and quick-tempered person. She said terribly damaging things to me in her fits of anger, such as, "This is why nobody likes you. Why did I have to be punished with you? You're ruining my life." At the time, since I was a child, those things were really difficult to take and understand that they weren't true, but later on I came to terms with the fact that my mom was under a very large amount of stress from my dad leaving and other struggles going on in our lives at the time. Nevertheless, everything was too much. I became very sad, anxious, and uninterested in much. I screamed and cried nearly every day for a long time. I retreated excessively to video games as an escape more than ever, as a coping mechanism for years. Eventually, somewhere slightly before the worst of this, I'd begged my mom to take me to therapy. Not for my depression, not for my anxiety, but actually for other things that ended up being autism and ADHD. Throughout my childhood, I always felt very different, but different in a bad way because I couldn't relate to anybody or find a way to understand what was going on. It was very alienating and frustrating. I often Googled, why am I stupid? Why am I always confused all the time? After I met a girl in middle school, we'll call her Edna, I found that I was able to understand the way somebody thinks for the first time ever. We thought the exact same way about many, many things, and she, too, was autistic. Once I'd been tested and diagnosed, I continued therapy where there were attempts made to teach me social skills. I didn't actually talk about the bad things from my childhood until I was about 17 years old. I started therapy at 12. All in all, these things led to a downfall. A battle I fought for a decade. For the first time at 15, I was hospitalized for suicidal ideation. It's not that it was the first time I'd wanted to kill myself, it's that it was the first time anybody took my problem seriously. During this first hospitalization, I truly did not know why I was feeling the way I was. I didn't connect the dots to my past at all for a very long time. I just thought I was depressed for no reason. Because they didn't know I had PTSD at the time, I got diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder bipolar type because my trauma symptoms were so severe that they seemed like psychosis. From the time I was 13 through this very day, I've been through an astronomical amount of different medications in search of a working combination. Currently, I still take 11 different pills a day. I proceeded to be hospitalized a total of 7 times until finally making the decision for myself to go to a longer-term residential treatment center once when I was almost 19. Just before then, my diagnosis had been sorted out better because I finally confessed problems that I hadn't been actively thinking about for ages. The thing about that is, even when you don't think about it, your body does. That's why I had so many symptoms even though I didn't think about where they were coming from. Before this treatment center, I struggled. I struggled for years with unstable relationships to people because of my feelings from how people treated me as a child. I struggled with my self-worth. I struggled with self-injurious behavior with scars that now may never fade. I struggled with so many issues from my mood disorder that I couldn't get out of bed for more than 30 minutes a day for a long time, leading to me dropping out of high school. I struggled with my mental illnesses being so out of control and unpredictable that nobody ever knew if I was even going to make it safely to the next day. But also, just before the treatment center, I made a very important friend, we'll call him Elmar, who said some things to me that changed the way I'll think forever. Elmar led me to believe in the concept of everything we experience gives us something. It gives us something that will be useful for another something at some point in the future. You just have to stick around long enough to see it. That thought really gave me a lot to think about while I was away at the residential treatment center. I learned to let go of the what-ifs of my past and think about what I have and what potential I have to be now. From that point, which was when I was almost 19, to now as I make this video, at which I'm almost 21, I can say that everything really was worth fighting for. I am 3 years clean of self-injury. I feel I am able to trust myself and my own stability now, and I have an amazing partner who I've been with for a while. We'll call him Egg. My relationship with Egg is so very different than any I've had before. Why? Because I'm not just dependent on Egg to fix problems within myself. I fix my own internal problems, and I'm able to have a lot more stability with another person because I'm not looking for a piece of my own patches within them. So, that is a story of how I went from a traumatized, horribly hurt child to a functioning, happy adult. Things aren't perfect all the time, and I still have to try, but now I want to continue on, and I'm doing much more than just surviving these days. I'm living.